Hello and welcome to the Radiate Wellness podcast with your host, metaphysician, Reiki master, and hypnotherapist, Christi Clemons Hoffman. Each week, we will discover teachings, tips, and tools to radiate your best life ever with practitioners, authors, and luminaries to help you on your path. Wellness, joy, peace, abundance. What do you want to radiate?
Hello, radiators. Welcome back to Radiate the Future with Carmen Turner-Schott, my friend and fellow Missourian, who has just written a new book, Astrology's Magical Nodes of the Moon, Releasing the Past and Embracing the Future. Hi, Carmen.
Hey, how are you?
I'm swell. How are you?
Very good. Very good.
I've been looking forward to talking to you again. What is this, number 3? This is the third time you've been on?
I think so. Yes. I'm
Yeah,
excited.
flyer.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's been busy writing and working, and I wrote this book with Bernie Ashman, who is an astrologer and a friend of mine. We were like, let's write a book together, and we want to write a book about our soul mission and moving towards the future, and it's called Astrology's Magical Nodes of the Moon, Releasing the Past and Embracing the Future.
Yeah.
So that's why we're here on this earth, is really to reach our North Node in astrology. That's what we look to see where your soul mission is.
Okay. I know enough of astrology to make me dangerous, and I understand the words, but not necessarily what they are.
Sure.
Node, what does that mean?
So astrologers, just in layman's term, an easy way to explain it, it has to do with the moon and the cycles of the moon. So astrologers calculate a certain astrological point in the sky, and the nodes of the moon is that calculation. So right now, the nodes of the moon in astrology, they move through each of the signs every 18 months. So 18 months, it's been about, 18 months ago, we had the nodes in Taurus and Scorpio, and that was affecting everyone on Earth. So there was a lot of loss, a lot of issues with losing loved ones, unexpected death, grief, loss, healing, letting go of the past, financial things were coming up for people.
When was this again?
This was in, where are we now? 2024. This was like 2023 into 2024. Yeah. And everyone I knew was having these Taurus Scorpio energies affect them. And I did too. I lost a friend unexpectedly. He was young. He was hiking and he had a heart attack and had a kid, 2 kids and a wife. And he was my brother growing up in childhood. We grew up in the same hometown, and I was shocked. And it was like all these shocking things of losing people that were young, that just out of the blue, didn't have any health problems. And a lot of people, clients and people I talked to, when the nodes of the moon were in Taurus and Scorpio, had the same kind of things happening in their life. And then I was waiting for those nodes to change. And they did this year, 2024, they moved into Aries and Libra. So right now in the sky, the nodes of the moon are in Aries and Libra. And those are the relationship karma nodes. And so a lot of people are having relationship karma come up, like divorce, separation, maybe getting married, thinking about getting married, living with someone, or things from the past coming back up. And it's a time to really balance your own goals with that of your partner. So it's about compromise, negotiation, mediation, balance, peace, harmony, fairness. And that's the nodes of Aries and Libra. It's really about balancing the nodes. So in our birth chart, when you're born, those nodes that I was talking about that change signs every 18 months they are in a certain sign in your astrology birth chart when you're born, and they're in a certain area of life, which we call the houses. So the sign that the North Node is in, and that is your soul mission this lifetime. It's what your soul wants to learn. So what it looks like, astrology is all symbols. So in your birth chart, it looks like headphones. It's like a horseshoe looking thing. And here, this is the North Node. It's like this little thing. This is the South Node. And so the North Node symbol is why your soul wanted to be born at the time, place, date, exact place of birth, because you wanted to be a certain node and you wanted to master a certain area of life. It could be marriage, it could be career, it could be home and family where you have that karma, but it's your karma and it's what your soul needs to balance and wants to balance. And what's kind of neat is that no matter what, all of us eventually will be in our North Node. Everybody gets there no matter what. So we can go there easily when we know astrology and we read books like this that give you different tips of what your soul is meant to let go of, old past patterns, beliefs, set in your old ways. That's the South Node. And that's where we feel cozy and comfortable because it's what we've always done. So for me, for instance, I have the South Node in Taurus. So in past lives, I like comfort, stability, having money, not having to worry about survival, right? Doing things that were comfortable and not taking risks and avoiding change. Tauruses don't like change. They like to control things and know what's going to happen and plan. So I've been there. In this lifetime, I'm like, no, I want to be a Scorpio. So my North Node is Scorpio, which has been very challenging because it's all about change and rebirth and transformation and healing and facing these dark taboo things and healing the past and forgiveness and letting go and moving forward to the future. And so it's really a balance. So we don't give up our South Node traits. We have them. It's part of our soul. But we're learning to focus on that North Node and master those traits. And then it's about balancing those traits. And so when I do charts for people, this is something I started realizing years ago. And I thought this is why I wanted to write the book. I realized that everyone gets into their node after their second Saturn return. So the first Saturn return is 27 to 30. And that is, we are in our South Node then. And we don't even feel our chart yet until after age 30. So we're living in the past, if you think of it that way. We're living in our South Node. And then we have all these things happen, right, during age 27 to 30 that help us grow. It's karma, it's the birth into adulthood. The planet Saturn is wisdom, it's discipline, it's responsibilities, it's karma, burdens, and it's the teacher. So after we go through that, we start moving towards the North Node for the first time ever, but it's new. And that's when I started feeling more like a Scorpio energy. And I said, ooh, I don't like this. I don't like how I'm feeling. This is not who I am. Because the Scorpio energy is very different than Taurus.
Oh my gosh.
Because polar opposite signs, they're compatible, but they're very different personalities. They're compatible elements. So every sign has an opposite in the sky, and that's what we call polar opposites. So Scorpio and Taurus always oppose each other, Virgo and Pisces and Sag, everyone has a polar opposite, and your nodes will be in polar opposite signs, always. And so I start thinking, oh, how am I ever going to be a Scorpio? Like, this is painful. I don't want to not trust people. And because I used to be too trusting. So I went through this thing where I started being more cautious of people, protecting myself, which is what Scorpios do. And they trust their instincts. They don't just believe what people tell them. They see through people, and they tend to be a little bit more skeptical about people till they trust them. And it takes a while to trust for Scorpio. So I thought, how am I ever going to be a Scorpio? And so I started realizing that most people that I attracted were Scorpios because that was my North Node. And then I started seeing this in counseling sessions where almost every parent I was doing a chart for, and one of their children had the same nodes but flipped.
Oh, interesting.
And me and my daughter have that. And me and Bernie, who wrote this book with me, have that. So
my gosh.
My daughter and Bernie are both South Node Scorpios, North Node Tauruses. So what they've learned, I'm learning. And what I've learned, I'm teaching them. And so it's like a mirror. You learn, it can be a little interesting because they're teaching you, you're supposed to be like that. So you draw people that have, like if your nodes are Pisces and Virgo, you're going to draw Pisces and Virgo people, energy people. So I draw Tauruses and Scorpios a lot. And then my daughter and I are flip nodes, which I started seeing. And I'm like, wow, that is really neat because that makes sense. Your children choose us and they have their own karma and learning, and we learn from them, and it's all meant to be. And so I started seeing this. And then as I got older, I kept getting more and more into this Scorpio energy, and I resisted it because I wanted to be the old me, the innocent, trusting, happy, easygoing, believe, a little bit idealistic about life, right? And I had to go through certain situations that got me being in my node. And I remember I was going through a really hard time in 2018, and I was walking and I'm like, why is this happening? And I heard this voice just come over me. How else will I make you a Scorpio? And I started crying and then laughing because it totally hit my soul. Like, of course, how else will I be a Scorpio if I don't have loss, if I'm not betrayed, if I don't have pain, if I don't lose a loved one and have to go through what death is about or my own mortality or my own things like that. And so after that, I realized that I had to go through some hard times to get into my node. And we all do. We all have to learn to embrace the North Node. And sometimes we can resist it. And then the universe forces us to get in there. And okay, I'm going to just do a little something to get you in there because you're not doing it. So I always try to teach people about their nodes at a young age. Like if I can get a 16-year-old, do their chart and start telling parents, and what your child's mission is, the parents can teach them compassion or trusting their instincts or having boundaries, whatever the node issue is. Not to marry young if they have a North Node Aries and South Node Libra, things like that. There's things I see that you can prevent and teach skills. So if you know your node and start really trying to become the North Node sign and embrace those personality traits, embrace those energies, because astrology is energy, then it's easier for you to master and get in that North Node at a younger age. But typically, by the time we're in our second Saturn return, age 57 to 60.
Yep, that's me.
We are in our node. Like things have got us in our node. And when you turn 61, you're doing what your soul came here to do. You're in it. You're in it. And you're like, oh, yeah, I know I'm in it. And people, every time I do a chart, I do charts for people that are 78, 80 years old. They verify for me. Oh, yeah, before this age, I wasn't doing it. Now I'm doing this. I'm like, well, that's your North Node. This is so cool. So you can see the scientific patterns. It's validating, it's confirming my research, so to speak, to hear people's stories. And I realized, don't worry about it. If you're not in your node right now and you're 40, 50, it's okay. Because by the time you're in your second Saturn return, you will get in your node for good. And then you will be living it, doing it, embracing the future, as we said. You won't be stuck in the past anymore.
Right.
Yeah. Are you feeling that way? You said you're in your second Saturn return?
I am. Yeah. I'm turning 60 next Saturday.
Wow.
Yeah. So
What's
it's
going
interesting.
on? What's been happening?
We'll have to take that offline. I
A
know
lot of change. A lot of change. Yeah.
A lot of change. Yes, a
Yeah.
lot of change. And so I'm just kind of wondering where the ball's going to land and how it's going to settle. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Right. Just looking at how that's going to look. Right.
Yeah.
Fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. So how do you and Bernie know each other in the first place?
Yeah. So Bernie and I met in my astrology Facebook groups. He's a member of my 8th house astrology Facebook group that I started in 2012. And we met in there. And he's an 8th houser like me. And so he read my book and he encouraged me to start writing. And he's the one that kind of helped me get some books out there and learn the publishing industry a little bit. And he's just been a mentor and friend of mine since then. Yeah. And he started out in astrology in the 1970s. And he wrote software for astrology software. He's done all kinds of cool things, past life reports, books himself. Yeah, other books as well. And we've just been very good friends. And he's just helped me so much, trust in my writing. And he's like, let's write a book together. And we're probably going to write another book together. We're already kind of brainstorming and some plans. And we both write very similar and have similar philosophies with astrology. So it's a good match.
That's wonderful. Your other books also take deep dives into finer points of astrology. So I don't know that I've seen any books out there on the nodes.
There's really just a few. And there's one very popular one that's a great book. And it's Astrology for the Soul, I think is the name of it. And it's older and it's like there's not a lot out there about the nodes. And it's really thick and it's deep and intense as well. We wanted to write a very simple, easy guide with tips. It's not a very big book. It's not a very thick book, but it gets to the point. We go through explaining to you what the basis of astrology, the planets, what the nodes are, the signs, and then past lives, a little bit about our own experience. And then we go through each nodal pair. So Aries, Libra, Libra, Aries, first house, seventh house, first house node placements. We analyze that for the reader and go through each of the 12 signs and what it means. So you can look up, oh, I got Pisces South Node in the 12th. You can look that up, what that means. And it'll tell you what your mission is. And we'll give tips at the end of each chapter on how to harness that energy of that node so you can balance why you're here. And I find that a lot of people know their sun sign, their moon sign, but a lot of people don't know what the nodes of the moon are. And that's why we want to do this, because it's the most important thing in your birth chart. So it's really important to know.
Now, why do you think it's the most important thing in your birth chart?
Because that's why we came here, is to master those traits and to balance those karmas of our past lives. This is what I believe as an astrologer. A lot of astrologers believe the nodes are past our karma. So they're past life energies, so to speak.
Fascinating how it shows up in the chart.
And it also, the other cool thing, I know you're a QHHT practitioner, and when different lives, people remember different lives, they often mirror their south node energy or time area. Like if they have the south node in the fourth house of home and family, their past lives, they might remember there might be trauma or issues with family, their parents, their mother, their father. And then those same souls are here this life, challenging them in their home.
Oh.
And it's interesting. And I've seen that play out when I know someone's chart. And then I know what they've told me has come up in a hypnosis session or whatever. And what I also do is the Akashic records. So I open up the Akashic records when I do astrology counseling, and I'll see different images, different symbols, and I'll feel the energies, and they'll start sharing with me. And then it mirrors what's in our north and south node. And it's like, oh, wow, like this is really interesting. Like someone said, I have a fear of water. I'm afraid of swimming. Where does that come from? You know what I mean? And you can start seeing this. And sometimes it is very much in the chart that you can see in the birth chart, some of these personalities, some of these fears, some of these energies. That's all it is energies. And I do believe, everyone always asks me, do you believe in free will or do you believe in destiny? That doesn't matter what we do. The chart is the chart. I do believe in both. Some things are destined to happen no matter what we do. And those things can be seen through astrology, because astrologers do predictions all the time and things happen. And it's because we're looking at planetary energies. We're looking at transits. We're looking at what's going on in the sky right now, how it's impacting people's birth charts, like the presidential election. Who's going to win the election? What's going to happen? You know, astrologers are looking at all of that stuff, and they can see the different ways it could play out. And that's why they always are pretty cautious about it could play out like this or this, you know. We don't really know, but something's going to happen because we know energy. And so I see that a lot. And people always come to me and ask, how do I overcome certain things? And a lot of times it's things from their south node that are getting in their way. And it may be things like trusting people, being vulnerable, not wanting to open up and be emotional with people. And people might feel like they're not loving or they don't care about them. And they're shocked when people tell them that, because they love these people, but they just didn't realize that they were in some kind of a pattern in these relationships. And so we can use astrology to change our patterns, to do all these things, and you can prevent some things. And that's why I believe it's a little bit of both, because some things are in the soul record and it matches the birth chart. When I do a chart and I do a soul record, it's very similar. It's like a picture, a map. It's connected. They're connected. Everything's connected. And so I think there's lots of tools out there that people can use. And one of the tools I use is astrology. And I've always loved it and have always used it in my counseling practice as a social worker and working with trauma survivors and children, teens, all of that, to get to know people better and to help validate certain things that happen in their life for certain reasons that they are the way they are. And it could be something basic like someone struggles with anger management issues, temper. They blow up, they lose their temper. I can see in a chart where that's coming from, probably 99% of the time. And I can say, okay, this is your moon's in Aries or Mars is in Aries in your chart. And these are tips you can do to control that energy and to control those feelings and to lessen it, whether it's exercise, self-care, all these different tips. So I always use it as a tool of self-awareness and to focus on people's strengths and where they can be more resilient. And that's why I think astrology is so important, to know at least the basics And our book is such an easy, simple read. You don't have to be an astrologer to understand it. And that's why Bernie and I both like to write in a way that is simplistic and basic for everyone to be able to understand what we're talking about. Because some astrology books are really into, this degree and that, and people get bored and they're overwhelmed and they're like, I can't learn this, there's too much. So it's very simple and it's an easy read. So if you want to learn more about your soul mission, I think anyone out there could benefit from reading this book.
Right. Well, we would have to know where our nodes are, and how do we know that? The Women in Podcasting Awards are an international People's Choice style of awards event, and we would love your vote. I'm Christi Clemons Hoffman, the host of this podcast you're listening to right now, and I'm up in 3 categories. First, the Health, Wellness, and Fitness podcast for the Radiate Wellness podcast, what you're listening to now. Also, Faith-Based podcast for Real Life Angel Encounters podcast. Also, as favorite expert guest. Again, that's me, Christi Clemons Hoffman. I would love your vote. Voting is open until October 1st. Please go to womeninpodcasting.net/vote to cast your vote. And thank you. I don't want to take too much of your time, but I would like to ask you a few simple favors. First of all, please rate, review, and share this podcast wherever you're listening. It sounds like a simple little thing, and it is, but it has a huge impact for us because it helps other people find us in the podcasting algorithms. I don't know how it works, but I do know that it helps a lot. Next, if you would subscribe or follow wherever you're listening, whether that's YouTube or Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Pandora, Spotify, wherever you're listening, just hit subscribe or follow, and that helps you and it helps us. It helps you because then you receive notifications when we have a new episode that's out. It helps us because, again, algorithm magic, I don't know what happens, but it helps. And then finally, you can support our podcast in a tangible way by going to radiatewellnesscommunity.com/podcast and then click on support the show. Now, we have a new feature too. We are now on Patreon. You can find us on Patreon. You can also find the link to Patreon when you go to radiatewellnesscommunity.com/podcast. So on Patreon, for $3 a month or $5 a month, you can support your metaphysical and spiritual growth. You can learn about upcoming guests, and you can get early and ad-free versions of the shows. So please support us. This podcast is free for you to listen, but we have costs, and quite frankly, they come out of my pocket. So if you like this content, if you get a lot out of it, please see what you can do to give back. Thank you so much.
Yes. So we would need to have you calculate your birth chart. And so where you can go, if for those listeners out there right now, you can go to astro.com and you can get a free birth wheel. And what you're going to need is your day, month, and year of birth, your exact time of birth, AM or PM. And the reason this is important is it changes the house placement of everything. So most of the planets are going to be in the same sign on that day and year and place, but the time is what changes everything. So even twins can have a different chart because, for instance, the moon sign moves through each sign every 2 to 3 days. So it's quick. Where we know everybody born on August 26th is a Virgo. We know that. We know that the sun stays in each sign 30 days, whatever. But the moon is every 2 to 3 days. And so depending on the time, it could be right on the cutoff of when the moon sign changes into the next sign. I've seen twins charts where one twin was a Pisces moon and one twin was an Aries moon, totally different people emotionally. So it's important to know the time. And if you don't know the time, because a lot of people don't have it on their birth certificate or their parents aren't here anymore to tell them, or they kind of know it's between 2 and 4 p.m. or there's something called chart rectification. So an astrologer, you can contact me or Bernie, and you can have your chart rectified, which is we do a session to really start looking at all of the timeline of your life, the big major events that have happened. And if we can nail down your rising sign, which is how people perceive you when they first meet you, physically, energy wise. If I can get someone's rising sign very accurate and they don't know their time, then I can get an accurate birth chart. And you'll know, because I'll tell people, if what I'm telling you is not resonating with you, we don't have the correct chart, because astrology is always resonates. It's accurate. And people know, how did you know that? That doesn't sound like me. I'm like, okay, we don't have the right chart yet. Let's keep working. And so there's things you can do. But for those that know your time, it'll be easy. You just put your time of birth in your city, state, country, and calculate. And I use Tropical Placidus, which is Western astrology. It's a house system. There's also Vedic astrology, sidereal. It's slightly different than Western astrology. I'm not an expert at it. I know enough, but I love it too. I think it's also resonates with people. I tell people, go by whatever resonates with you the most, that validates your personality. And there's no like one that's right or wrong. But in my opinion, me and Bernie are Western astrologers. The reason that tropical astrology to me is the most accurate is because it never changes. It's been this way since the ancient times. We go by the seasons of the year. We go by the 360, the ecliptic. So we go by Aries starts the spring. Aries is the first sign, right? The cardinal signs start the seasons of the year. Cancer, summer, Capricorn's winter, Libra's fall, Aries is spring. It never changes. And it's even in the Bible. It's in ancient cultures. And so that's why I like it, because it's been around forever and it never changes. So that's why people ask me, what is Western astrology? Why is that different than this or that? And it is slightly different. What happens in sidereal astrology or Vedic astrology, especially in India, they go by where the planets are right now in the sky. So things have shifted just a little bit in astronomy, okay? The constellations and everything. So they go by looking up like right now, what it's like. And so what that does is that shifts everyone a whole sign over. So if you thought you were a Libra, you could be a Scorpio in Vedic. And so when I started researching that in my own life, I'm like, I know I'm a Virgo and I know my rising sign's Virgo. But in Vedic, it changes my moon, my rising, my sun, so I'm like, it's not me. I just couldn't resonate. But some people like it. And I have friends that are Vedic astrologers. But when you go on there, you'll get your wheel and you just print it and you'll look for the horseshoe, this symbol, that's your north node. You'll look at what sign it's in and what house it's in. Same with the south node. And that's how you'll know where your nodes are. There's even probably moon node calculators out there, websites. I mean, all of this you can Google online, but you also can contact me or Bernie through our websites, and we can email you your wheel. If you want us to, I can calculate a birth wheel very easily for you, as long as you have your details. Yeah.
Wonderful. That's very generous of you, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah. This is so interesting. I mean, and this is why I don't do astrology, because there is so much that goes into it. It is years and years and years of study.
It is a lifelong study. I mean, that's what I love about it. I tell anyone can learn astrology. It's something that you don't ever really fully master, though, because there's so much new and different things you can learn. That's why I love it. You could be a medical astrologer and focus on the health and wellness in someone's chart. You can be a psychological astrologer, which is what I am, where I use astrology more as a personality tool to tap into people's strengths, help them with their career, their relationships, all of those things, healing their trauma. That's what I use it for. Some people are business astrologers, like they use it to play the stock market and to make money. I mean, there's a quote from, who is the famous money person? He says, billionaires use astrology. Millionaires don't use astrology. Billionaires do, or something like that. There's a quote. And what's also interesting is a lot of people in the stock market and these other things, money making things, they use astrologers to help them with timing and when to invest. And there's whole astrologers that are experts in that. I know a little bit about business astrology, but I'm not an expert. But one of the cool things is, if you think of New York, the stock market, what a big statue is sitting down there. You know what it is of, right? Taurus,
Bull.
the bull,
Yeah.
the bull, which is Taurus,
Yeah.
the sign of money in astrology. It's not by chance there's a bull.
Right.
They know it's money, it's security, it's finance, it's fortune is Taurus. It rules the money house in our birth chart, the second house, value, all that. So it's kind of cool. You'll see these hidden symbols throughout things, but I love it because I'm still learning. I'm still learning things, and it's so fun. You never get bored.
That's true. That is true. Yeah, there's so many avenues that you can, and so many things you can do with it too. And of course, it's been around forever,
Yes.
thousands of years. Right?
Yes.
Ronald Reagan famously had his wife who hired an astrologer.
Oh, yeah. Nancy Reagan was big into astrology. And I believe that there's a lot of presidents that use astrologers. There's a lot of politicians use astrology. There's a lot. I mean, even modern medicine, it started out with astrology. Hippocrates were astrologers. And he said a physician that doesn't know astrology is not a physician, but a fool. And you can look at they call it osteo medicine. I can't remember the name of it. It's a historic thing. It's where they started figuring medicine out was based on astrology and what parts of the body each sign rules, because each sign rules a part of our body. That's why Aries rules the head, the brain, anything with the face, and that's why they get headaches. Leo, the lion, rules the heart. And so in old medical books, there'll be an image of a person with the astrological symbols on all of the body areas that they rule. And that's how they came up with modern medicine in the ancient times.
Oh my goodness. Well, you see, I'm a Leo and I thought that it was ruled the spine. That's so funny.
Leo rules the heart and it rules the circulatory system as its main things. But a certain part of the spine, yeah, a certain part of the back, yeah, does rule. Yeah, it's interesting.
Heart and circulatory. That makes a lot of sense, actually. That's so crazy. Now, before we started recording, we were talking about how astrology predicted some of the things that are going on right now.
Yes.
Ah, can you
Eerily.
really?
I was on a podcast. I do a astrology forecast every month on another podcast at the beginning of the month. I've been doing it for about a year. And so we were doing last month, and I was talking about the energies coming up for July and everything. This was in June. And it was crazy because one of the things I talked about is there's going to be a lot of changes and things are going to be happening on the news. We're going to see it, and it's going to be shocking events. Because what happened is the planet Uranus and the planet Mars conjuncted each other, and they also conjuncted a star or asteroid called Algol, Algol. So this master conjunction of these three things, astrologers were really worried about it. And there's videos all over YouTube. There was a UK astrologer. He's really awesome. I have to look up his name. He did a video like the day before the Trump assassination happened. Yes, attempt. And he said that someone would lose their head. And there's an unexpected like violence, very shocking if something's going to happen. And he also predicted that Biden would not be in the next election. And we're like, what? Like, how does he know this? Well, he was looking at Biden's birth chart and looking at where this Uranus and Mars stuff was going on, and same with President Trump's chart, and he could see that there's a lot of change coming, and we are going to be, and he predicts all this. So I just felt the energy. I'm like, it's not going to play out like we think it's going to. And Mars is violence, aggression. Uranus is shocking events that affect your mind, your belief system. And so look what happened. They conjuncted, and then we had the thing play out on television.
Wow.
Then when it shifted, it was still going on that week. It was still impacting President Biden's chart. But what happened was we had a Pluto conjunct the moon, the full moon in Capricorn. Pluto, the United States is in a Pluto return right now, the birth chart of the United States. And so there's a lot to this. I just know the basics, and but anyone can Google. But Pluto, we had a full moon in Capricorn, and we had 2 full moons in Capricorn 2 months in a row. That's very rare. They call it once in a blue moon, that saying. And that's why, because you don't have 2 full moons in the same sign very often. Right. So we had a Capricorn full moon. What does Capricorn rule? Politics, career, the public, politicians, all this stuff. And it's like the lessons that weren't learned. The first full moon in Capricorn came back again in July during the second Capricorn moon, which is when all of these things happened. Because the planet Pluto, the day it conjuncted the moon, President Biden, he stepped out of the election, out of the running.
Out of the campaign, yeah.
It's that Pluto hit the moon, and that's when he made the decision. And it's an ending. Pluto ends things. It ends them. And so that's the day it happened in astrology. And we all were like that. Oh my gosh, it makes sense because Pluto was conjunct the moon in Capricorn, both. So anyway, you can see these energies play out and how they do affect our lives. It's just like the full moon. The full moon affects all of us, whether we believe in it or not. I mean, I would say, even if you don't believe in astrology, it's influencing you. You just don't know about it. You don't believe it. You don't study. You don't know about it, but it does. And people are like someone asked me the other day, Carmen, they don't believe in any of this stuff. And they're like, Carmen, what is going on in the stars? Like, I know something, like my life is just, so I said, well, let me take a look. And I'm like, oh, this is what's going on. You know, you got this transit, you got this, and like, that's exactly how I feel, you know? So even non-believers that don't really know it are getting more open-minded to astrology. And I think it's becoming more of a mainstream thing. And I think that's because of Pluto going into the sign Aquarius, because Aquarius rules astrology. It rules innovation, science, technology, space, astronomy, all these things. And people are getting more interested in it. So it's going to grow and grow, I believe, as more of, I wish it would be considered more of a science as it should be, but I try to do research in certain things and it just brings validity to astrology because people call it a pseudoscience. It's not a real science because, you know, whatever, but it really is. When you start looking at these things, it really is a science and a tool of self-awareness. So anyway, I can talk forever about it, but I love it. And yeah, the things going on right now, there's so many different predictions of what this Uranus-Mars all-goal conjunction will do. You can look up tons of videos right now on YouTube about everyone's looking at all their charts, trying to figure out who's going to win. I mean, there's tons of theories, but I had someone, astrologer told me in May, okay, this was before any of this craziness happened, that neither Biden nor Trump would be in the final election.
Oh, wow.
That is what some astrologers are saying based on their charts, based on what they're seeing in their birth charts with the transits and everything going on. There's not, things aren't done yet changing. That's all we know. That's what astrologers are predicting. Now, I'm not putting that out there myself, but I think it's interesting what some of these astrologers are predicting out there about the election and different things like that.
So neither Biden nor Trump
will be in, they won't be in election. So that already has happened, at least for one of them.
Right. Right.
So, I mean, it almost happened for both of them. But the thing I was talking about this on the podcast. The thing that why astrology is so amazing is, let me tell you this. Okay. So, you know, Jeremy Renner, the actor that shoots the arrow, he's in the Avengers, the arrow shooting guy.
Oh, yeah. No.
You know, he's the one that got run over by the snowplow. And he's been all over the talk shows lately. He died and came back. He had a near-death experience. He was run over by a snowplow trying to save his nephew from getting run over. This happened last year, and he had to learn to walk again. He had to learn to do everything again. He broke like 50 bones in his spine, everything. And he's a miracle. Like, look him up, Jeremy Renner.
Yeah.
And I looked at his chart. And it has to do with Mars. Mars's accidents, freak accidents that are violent, unexpected, right? He had Mars in the 8th house, but he had Jupiter, the planet of good luck and good fortune, hovering there, and that's why he survived. So in President Trump's chart, he had this Mars Uranus thing going on, messing with his Mars and his birth chart and all this stuff, the day that it happened on TV, but he had Jupiter there. Jupiter protected him like a guardian angel planet is what we call Jupiter in astrology. It protects you. It's like a guardian angel placement. And Jeremy Renner had the same thing and survived his really terrible accident. It's a miracle. I mean, when you see what he went through, he's writing music now. He completely changed his life after this. He's like getting to singing and stuff. He's in the show Mayor of Kingstown. I don't know if you've seen that. He plays anyway, he's a big famous actor in all the Marvel movies. He's the arrow guy that shoots there. I don't think of his name, but in the superhero movies. Yeah.
Oh, really? I'm not up on the latest movies and such.
Yeah. But he's in a new video that's like an inspirational video about what he went through. And he's like, I shouldn't even be here. I should have died. And I'm here. And it's really powerful to hear a story. Yeah.
Wow.
It's neat. And I'm like, what happened? I said, there is Jupiter. Jupiter protected him. It was on. And that's what we see going on. And also, you know, Kamala's chart is a really good chart. For politician. I mean, it's a good chart. A lot of people are saying she has a very good chart, and they were saying exactly they could see why this is happening to her right now. Like there's all of this is all over YouTube. You can look at different people describing, you know, looking at birth charts and of all the candidates and what they see. It's really interesting if you want to learn kind of a different perspective on it than the news, you know.
Wow. Yeah. So that was my next question about Kamala, is if she's got anything in her chart that we need to be careful of or watch out for.
They're saying that her chart is good. Yeah, it's looking like really positive stuff. This is what they're, I mean, we'll see if they're right. I
Feel
mean,
positive about her. Very
I
positive
know. Well,
enthusiasm.
she's a Libra, I believe, with an Aries moon. I think she's a Gemini rising and got a lot of good stuff in there. But there's a transit that she has that happened right around what a couple, like a week or so ago when all this was, that was very beneficial. Like it's like coming out into the public, being forced into the public eye more, things like that, which is what's happened. So
Exactly what happened.
it's very interesting. But that week that Mars, Uranus, and Algol, that was a dangerous time. The astrologers have been predicting that something really very serious was going to happen. Like it is like in history because they just knew because of the energy of it. It's not good when those three are.
You're talking about when former President Trump's assassination attempt happened.
That whole week up until Biden resigned, it was still impacting everyone.
Oh, I felt on edge. That whole week I just
Yes.
felt terribly on edge.
Yes, yes. This unsettled energy is still
Yeah.
affecting us, and that's Uranus. But when Pluto takes away, ends, destroys, changes things, starts something fresh and new, and when it hit the full moon, that's when unexpectedly President Biden dropped out of the election. It was like he just decided. They said his people around him didn't even know he was going to do that. His advisors. They said his advisors didn't even know because that's what Pluto does. It just gives you your answer. Like there's no way out. Like you just know what to do. And you know, he's a Scorpio, so he's a very intuitive person anyway.
Love that. So between now and I guess January, when whoever wins gets sworn in, are there any dates that look kind of suspicious? Any dates that look like there could be a surprise? You know, they talk about the, what is it, the October surprise with election.
They're saying that there's predictions that there could be some kind of tech thing, some kind of a bad thing happen that affects the elections. Let me just say that. This is the prediction right now.
Wow, like voting machines going down or campaign websites going off.
Like hacks or uprisings or, you know, something happening where it delays and it messes up the election somehow. Yeah. Let's see if they're right, but this is what they're saying. Some of the astrologers are saying. I just know I don't like Uranus. It's one of those planets because it's shocking, it's unexpected, it just blindsides you. Like you had no idea. But its goal is to force growth and new opportunities. So it's doing these things to make changes that haven't been happening. It forces change, is what it does.
So when are we out of the woods with Uranus?
Oh, it's going to be a while because it's transiting, it's still close to Mars, and Uranus is in Taurus. That's the other problem because Taurus is all about tradition and rules and order and structure and practicality and all these things and money, finance, security. And when Uranus moves into Gemini, which will happen next year, about a year from now, it's going to shift. But right now, because it's in Taurus, it's shaking up all those foundations, those old ways of doing things, politics, everything they're doing is old ways. Yeah. So some of the predictions are, if you think about this, someone told me that, like, I don't know, could be wrong. I need to be fact checked on this, but that 80% of the world's population is under age 35. This is what I was told. If you think about it, this younger generation, the baby boomers, we're losing the baby boomers. This younger generation is all about uprising and change and innovation and non-traditional ways of doing things, thinking outside the box, shaking things up, right? And that's Uranus. The Uranus energy is shaking up the Taurus old ways, and it's not going to survive. They've got to change things. So if you think about this, we have the Electoral College. I was thinking about this the other day. In the old days, when we started this country, the Constitution and everything, it makes sense because people had to go by horse carriage and stuff to vote. But why do we do that now? We have all this technology. Why can't we just go by who votes and the popular vote is who elects? Why do we have these only certain number of, and so it's like, it's not the vote of the people, really. It really is. No. And so that's Uranus questioning, why do we have to do it this way? And so that's an example that I think is already happening, and you can see it happening, right? And then look at the division that's going on. I mean, they're so heated on Facebook. Like, I'm just not touching anything on there. And a friend of mine posted something just out of innocence, a nice post, and got attacked for it. And so they took it down, and it wasn't bad at all. I mean, it was something positive about one of the candidates and Kamala or whatever. But it's like, I'm not posting anything political right now or anything right now. But a lot of this, if you think about it, this is really interesting because, the nodes, we're talking about the nodes of the book. The nodes are in Aries and Libra right now. And in politics, this is huge because Aries is about getting what they want. Aries is selfish, self-centered. They want, what about me? And then Libra is their opposite. What about other people? What about fairness, justice, equality, all these energies, right? So this is the energy of the world right now that's affecting politics. It's affecting our personal life, all of this.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. So yeah, I just went back to Shakespeare. And what is it? The fault, dear Bruno, is not in our stars. Well, maybe it is.
Yeah, I know, right?
We think we're so independent. We think we are so bloody clever and independent, but really we're responding to the energy around us.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I just think if people had their own astrologers, if the presidential candidates had their own astrologers, they would not have been doing anything that week. They would have been told, do not do anything that week. Do not do any public speak. Stay at home. Just stay. Yes.
Wrap yourself in bubble wrap.
Yes. And just be Teflon and don't let things roll off. Don't react because the conflict level and the aggression and irritability is heightened for everyone. It's been like that a couple weeks now. It should. And then what's going to happen? August 1st, Mercury goes retrograde, the planet of communication. Yeah. And it's going to mess with everybody's communication, technology, computers, what people say is going to be taken out of context. They're going to be fighting and arguing on news channels. It's going to be, and it's going to last for about 6 to 8 weeks. Yeah. It's already affecting us at the end of July because we're in what's called the shadow period, which is where the energy is already starting to play out. And then when it goes retrograde, it means that the energy of that planet is blocked. That's the easiest way to explain it. So communication's everything, right, to us. So people may misinterpret what you say. They always say, don't do anything new during Mercury retrograde. Don't sign any contracts. Don't buy a new home. You can finish old stuff. It's a time to finish the old, but it's also when past things come back to haunt us and we have to deal with it again. So we're going to see that play out in August with the election. That's what I think.
Oh,
yes.
Interesting.
Yes. And it's going to be televised because it's media, radio, everything with communication. Mercury is speaking, teaching, radio, television. That's, computers. That's Mercury. And it's going to be funky. The energy is not going to be right, guys. So just see how it plays out.
We have dates for that?
Yeah. August 1st through about the 1st of September.
So you're talking about the whole Mercury retrograde period. It's going to be like this.
Yes. This is
a dumpster fire for 6 weeks.
I think we're going to see this play out. Yeah. Because Mercury, when it's retrograde, and it's going to affect certain people more than others.
That's true. I mean, every Mercury retrograde is different.
And some people that have a lot of Gemini or Virgo are highly affected. Yes. And guess who has that? President Trump and Kamala Harris. They have Gemini, a lot of it.
Where does Kamala have it?
Her Gemini's rising, her rising sign. And I think he's got something else in there too. I can't remember. And then, of course, President Trump has quite a bit of Gemini. He's a Gemini sun. And in the 10th house of career and the public image. So I think it's going to be Mercury retrograde. It's just going to be what we're seeing on the news for the whole month is going to be like a lot of debating, a lot of misinterpreting, miscommunication. Yeah, delays could be things are rescheduled. Maybe there's debates that are rescheduled because it's not a good time to debate because it's hard to get your words and your mind is not as sharp and quick to think on your feet when Mercury is retrograde because it's spinning, it's blocked. That's all. It's best to wait till it's direct again, which will be about the first, second week of September. It'll be out of the shadow period. Kind of that, but
interesting. Oh, this is fascinating. All right. Well, we will see what we shall see. We knew it was going to be a bumpy ride anyway, so just buckle up, everybody. It's going to be a bumpy ride.
Yes.
And we just do the best we can with what we've got at any given time. Yes. And always be kind, always pause before you react, pause before you say anything. pause before you think.
Yes.
Never a bad idea. All right.
Yeah.
So, but your book, let's go back to that.
Yes.
And Astrology's Magical Nodes of the Moon. And it's already out there, isn't it? Published date came and gone?
Yeah, the Kindle's out, and in the UK it's out, and then 1 August it's released. So you can pre-order, and by the time people see this, it may be released. So you guys can go on Amazon.com, Barnes and Noble, and get it that way.
Yeah. And so it releases in the United States on the first day of Mercury retrograde.
Yes. Which is
Yay.
really kind of cool because it's like your old project comes to fruition, which is what happens during Mercury retrograde. Old stuff can come, you get things done or can finish and complete things that you've been working on during the cycle, which is a book. Because we wrote it like a year ago. When you write a book, it takes about a year to get in the systems and for it to even be published. It's like another year after you turn it in, you have to wait to even see it in real form. So
wow. Okay. And your website, of course, is Carmen Turner-Schott, oneword.com. And you can get all of your books on that website, plus all kinds of stuff, classes, events, blog, podcast. Wait a minute. You've got a podcast too? How did I not know this?
I do a show called Signs in the Sun, Moon, and Stars. And I take live calls. I have people share their charts with me, and I share with them what I see live. And it's every Saturday on Bold Brave TV at 3 p.m. Central. Yes. So if you want to listen in, follow Bold Brave TV on YouTube. Would love for you to watch my show on Saturdays and start sharing that. Would love that.
That's incredible. How long have you been doing that?
Since January.
Okay, so it's kind of new. And that can be found also on your website, Carmen Turner. Now, is it Schott or Scott?
CarmenTurnerSchott.com. Right, yeah.
CarmenTurnerSchott.com, which will be in the show notes.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for joining me again. Third time is incredible. We should probably catch up like at January around the inauguration time.
Yes, let's do it. If you want me back on, just let me know. I can prep a whole presentation. We'll just talk and see what happens. Astrologically, you know, how it plays out. Let's see.
The new year coming up, 2025, right?
Yes.
It sounds like a great time. I can't wait to talk to you then. I look forward to it. My Mercury retrograde's already starting and my community.
No worries.
Yes. Well, I'll see you next time, Carmen, and hold down the other side of the state for me, okay?
I will. Thank you. Thank you.
Don't know what to watch next? Decisions. Well, we've got some suggestions. You can click this little video here and watch that. It's something that we think you're going to like. If you like the last one, you're going to like that one too. You can also click on the subscribe button. And if you do that, then you'll get notifications whenever we have a new video up. Win-win, right?